Well, I'm out of my fucking mind today. I am fucking wrecked. I've not prepared well for this podcast.
I think we should just make this a minimally structured one.
Yeah, you're probably right. Dear listener, it's the Christmas season. And now that my church is in full large choir singing maskless, huffing on each other and me mode, and I'm there all the time, I am just out of my mind with being overworked. I think Allison is too, in other, frankly, more important ways.
Well, pretty soon it's being a scientist is going to be outlawed, and so we're gonna have to depend on your church income as our only source of income.
My $17,000 a year church job.
That's gonna be all we get, because
I wonder if I'll bleep that number. I don't even know.
Well,
it's pretty funny as a number, so maybe I won't bleep it.
We've only got a couple years left.
Yeah, we're both in a pretty dire place right now. I don't know, maybe that this comes out this Friday. We're recording on Sunday evening, again, at the moment where brains become bad.
Your brain should be good on Sunday evening because you should have had a rest, but you have to work all day on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so typically I also work on Sunday because, why not?
Yeah. And if this comes out this Friday, who the fuck knows what new shit we'll learn about the eternal pandemic between now and then. We're just fucking out of our minds. I will say that I've saved a piece of news for you to relay on Mike. It's a person who died. This will be old
someone
news
good?
On Friday. Well, someone bad, but it's good that they died. Do you want to guess?
There are so many bad people. How could I possibly guess?
Bob Dole has died.
I mean, sure, that's good, but whatever. Bob Dole was not near the top of my list of people whose deaths would measurably improve the state of the nation. I was hoping it would
Madison Cawthorn or something.
I was hoping it would be legitimately good news. Like, oh, here's someone who wants to harm you, who has of spontaneous natural causes.
Well, spontaneous natural. By that you mean that an unvaccinated person got COVID. And
did Bob Dole die of COVID?
No, we mean he died of being 98.
Okay, well then, what I'm saying is he was already so irrelevant, whatever. They've all gotten away with being shitty.
It's true.
I mean, whatever. I want the people who are currently making the world a living hell to be the ones to die.
I will say
until it's one of those, don't act like don't do a drum roll to tell me that some 98-year-old who I literally have not given a shit about in 20 years has died.
I will say that Bob Dole's was one of the few old generation of Republicans to really full-throatedly embrace Donald Trump. The reason I decided that one was important to bring up is because when I was in high school in the in the 1996 election, so this is when I was 14. This is the year I threw off the shackles of my Catholicism, but was still, residually horrible. It was the year of the 1996 election. This is when Bob Dole was running against Bill Clinton. And I was fucking obsessed with Bob Dole. I loved Bob Dole. I had printed out pictures of Bob Dole that I printed out.
Wow.
I printed out on
on a laser jet.
No, well, this was my family had in the early 90s, the sort of, what is it, dot matrix printer that had the things on the side, you to pull off the sides of the paper.
Yep.
What were those even called?
I don't know what those.
That's lost to history at this
vestigial organs were called used to be on printer paper in those. But those were obsolete when the time you're talking about. That type of printer was not.
Well, what I was going to say is in 1996, my family had just gotten their first inkjet printer. For the first time I could ever print in color. And the first things I ever remember printing in color were pictures of Bob Dole.
Holy
that I
shit.
then possessed and fucking brought to school with me and shit. I mean, he was extremely elderly at that point. I guess now only extremely elderly people become president or run for president, but it was considered, I think, marvelous at that point that he was in his 70s and was running for president.
Do you think The Rock is going to wait until he's in
elderly?
his 70s to run for president?
Wow, good question. What is he now? He must be in his 40s.
Because he's sort of gently, he likes it when people talk about the idea that he might run for president.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually inevitable that he will.
Right, but the question is, do you think he'll wait till he's 80 years old
I
to do it?
I think so, because I think the cultural consensus is now you must be at least 70.
Right.
You need to have absolutely no stake in what happens in the future.
How do you think The Rock will look when he's 80 years old?
That's a good question. I mean, I think he will.
I mean, absolute dog shit, right? Like, people who are real muscle guys when they get to be old, there's like the sort of old person who engaged in fitness, like Jack LaLanne, who still looked fit and healthy and strong when he was elderly. But I feel like, well, first of all, no one who looks like The Rock lives to be 80.
How old is Arnold Schwarzenegger? Like, he must be in his mid to late 60s.
He is 74.
Okay, he's even older than I thought. So what does he look like? Are there any beach shots of him, or?
I don't think he allows himself to be pictured shirtless, so it's hard to know like what's going on under there. He still presents as in good shape and big, but you have to assume that the muscle situation he had, like, he must be all skin underneath there now.
Well, there might be some loose skin and whatnot, but that's sort of an inevitable part of being in your mid 70s anyway.
Well, yeah, but with him, his muscles were so large that like it just must be empty space in that
sure.
skin.
Okay, are you? But his face is like, the thing is, plastic surgery is so good now. Like all these minimally invasive things. Like Martha Stewart's
people,
what,
right.
80 something, and she looks like 30 years younger than she is, at least on Instagram.
It is established canon on this podcast that Martha Stewart is fucking banging.
But I guess what I'm saying is people like that. Arnold Schwarzenegger can get any surgeries or procedures done to his face and body that he wants to have done, and they will be done as well as they can possibly be. And I feel like at that upper end, it's gotten really good. Well, and The Rock is going to be... Remember, there's going to be 20 more years of cosmetic surgery advances before The Rock needs it. So I think The Rock might just kind of look like The Rock. Yeah.
Yikes. Wow. How do you think we'll look when we're old, not having access to any of this technology?
Well, I believe my face has actually aged 5 years in the last year and a half or so.
Well, but the thing is,
compared to my previous rate, it's really... And maybe even just in the last 3 months, I feel like it's picked up.
But this is true for everybody. I think that everyone's aging has accelerated.
Yeah, I told you this, but I'm doing the Barack Obama in office rate of aging, where they, show the picture when he's like halfway through his second term and he looked like he'd aged 20 years or whatever. He looks fine now because I assume he got
whatever
Botox and stuff.
Got going
took
on.
some HGH, whatever it is you got to take to look like Martha Stewart.
HGH.
Probably.
We gotta buy some gray market HGH. Get strong and then fight our enemies. Don't you want to be buff?
Well, I do want to be buff. So there's two things in tension here, though. Probably the best thing you can do for slowing down metabolic aging is to starve yourself, right? To fast. But the only way to get big is to eat a lot. And it's really hard to eat a lot and have periods of fasting.
Well, live fast, die young, man. We got to get buff now, even if it means paying for it later, I think.
Wait, why do we have to get buff now?
So we have to fucking fight our way to a can of beans, we're able to.
Fighting is a skill. You also have to know how to fight. You can't just
But if you look intimidating.
I will never look intimidating.
What if you get like Arnold. Let me.
What drugs would it take to get me to look like Arnold?
Well, here's my question.
Like a 50-gallon drum. You would have to, every night, you'd have to
have an IV drip of steroids.
Yes, pack me into a 50-gallon drum of testosterone.
Here's the thing. We it's weird that we're talking about this again because last episode of this we also talked about bodybuilders, but they're going for like some weird aesthetic ideal, obviously at the expense of their own health. But if we weren't concerned about either our own long-term health or even how aesthetic we looked, but just getting as fucking huge,
raw strength
and strong
and
as was like possible within the limits of chemistry.
Well, the thing is, size and strength are actually kind of opposed goals in bodybuilding.
Right.
So which one do you want to be? You want to
strong.
You want to be strong.
Well,
so because we could get pretty strong without being much bigger than we currently are. That's the thing.
One of us should be legitimately strong and the other one should be intimidating looking.
Maybe we should break up and find larger people.
Wait, you think we should get divorced and then each marry an enormous person?
Find a larger person.
To maximize our survival in the future? Wow. Well, you heard it here first.
Your plan has always been to die early in the apocalypse.
Well,
you've
God's
always said it over and over again that your plan is to die immediately because you don't want to live through it.
Well, I think...
But you're going to have to start making some more nuanced decisions about what you want to live through.
What is this podcast about?
I was actually considering asking you the same question.
Do the introduction.
You're Roman?
You're Allison, and this is a podcast about black market steroids called Seedy Business. It's seedy business. It's seedy business. My mother just texted me, please tell us in the next few days what Allison likes to eat for breakfast. So you have a few days to think about that before I have to answer that extremely weird question. She's given us the parameter of a few days. What if I tell her you like to eat a heaping serving of human growth hormone for breakfast? Do you think she could get us some?
What would be the process? It would be some sort of farcical, meandering tale by which she would acquire HGH.
Well, she does go...
There's no way she would just she's not going to go on the dark web.
She does go swimming at the Y, so maybe she could ask around there. See what people got. I don't know, or maybe, they fucking fortify Wheaties with all those vitamins. Maybe they got some Wheaties with HGH now. So this is the penultimate full episode we're going to do this year. We'll have a short, and then the final episode of the year, final full episode of the year will come out on Christmas Eve.
Ostensibly, we're visiting family for the holidays, and then I'm traveling to a conference immediately after that. Both of those seem increasingly dubious to me. But
today, I think we had this conversation off mic at one point, but we've largely only done catalogs once, with the exception of a few of our favorites, those being things like Strictly Medicinal or Southern Exposure or, Burpee because it's funny, not because it's our favorite, or Fedco. The granddaddy of them all, not in terms of age, but maybe the granddaddy of them all is not the right term for it. That's WrestleMania's tagline. The gold standard in catalogs is, of course, Seed Savers
Exchange.
Seed Savers Exchange, yeah. And we did do the 2020 Seed Savers, but we spent this whole of 2021 not having done the 2021 Seed Savers. So I think we'll talk about that.
You won't say the word exchange after the word savers.
You think I'm ideologically opposed to it?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Oh, yeah, I won't do it.
How do you feel about turning your back on Twisted?
Oh no, we're all fucking all over the place now.
I mean, there's no explaining that. So
No. Well, you have to be pretty deep inside Juggalo culture to get.
you have to have listened to one episode of one specific Juggalo podcast.
All right, but I do think that's probably the third most famous Juggalo podcast. So probably people have heard it. Oh, you know what? It's a little late for Thanksgiving, but
Happy Thanksgiving, motherfuckers! This is Superhuman TV Show. Today I'll be jumping onto this beautiful Thanksgiving dinner. This is for the juggalos and juggalettes. Do not try this at home, and I hope you like it. Whoop whoop! Fuck this shit! Whoop whoop! Fuck! Fuck! My elbow! My fucking elbow!
I don't know. I found that to be pretty hard to listen to, actually. I'm not sure you can leave that on the podcast. That was...
well, this whole thing so
No.
far is gonna be a real turnoff to people.
This is all bad. Everything so far has been bad.
This is what I just played is a crossover of two of my interests, being professional wrestling and juggalos. There's this guy, his name is Superhuman, which he spells human with two M's, I guess for trademark reasons. It reads as Superhuman. And he's a juggalo who does wrestling stunt videos.
It's like he does like a jackass type stuff,
That's
but
right,
just like
yeah.
alone in his yard. Like he hurts himself.
He hurts
He's
himself.
not hurting others.
Right, for sure.
And others are not hurting him.
Well,
He
he creates he'll put a bunch of
sets up a tableau.
yeah, right. He'll put a bunch of glass tubes on a table and some knives and shit. And he gets up on a platform above the whatever he's going to jump onto and says, "This is, I'm superhuman here.
This is for my
juggalos and juggalettes. I hope you like it. Don't try this at home. Whoop, whoop." Then he takes off his shirt to reveal just quite a physique, and then pumps himself up by going, "Ah, ah, ah," and then he screams, "Fuck this shit," and then he leaps onto whatever he is deciding to jump through on the day, and then he writhes in pain. I'll link to it.
I don't feel the joy that you feel, I think, when watching this.
It makes
guy.
me feel alive. Allison, what's in the garden?
Then let us cultivate our garden. It's the only way to make life endurable.
What's in the garden?
I don't know. Who can know?
Wait, I did put a note in about this. Let's see. Oh, here's my note. What the fuck is going on with our compost?
I don't know. I just haven't really been dealing with it.
Here's my question. What happens if you keep putting compost in a pile, but never turn it?
Then it composts more slowly.
Okay, but it's not...
It doesn't stop decomposing.
Okay, it's not salvageable.
Correct.
Okay. We have this compost bin in the backyard.
It's an Earth Machine branded 4-sided compost bin.
It links together sort of like a Lincoln log situation, right?
And it has little trapdoors at the bottom, lid that fits on top and
Right.
locks in place.
Yeah, here's what I was going to ask you. So the lid that locks in place, when I go and take the compost out, I lock it, and then I often go outside to find that the lid is off. And I think it's the raccoons that open the lid with their incredible little fingers and thumbs. And then they get in there and fucking eat our old nasty banana peels.
Well, I mean, that could be, but I don't think raccoons can open that bin. I think raccoons can get in there if they want to, but I don't know that they can turn those latches if they're actually latched.
You don't think that in a world where
I think a raccoon would probably prefer to open the trap door that's at the bottom that pretty readily slides up and down and then scamper in there.
do you think it's our neighbor eating our nasty banana peels instead of the raccoons?
So you're sure someone's eating them
Well, why would they want to go in there if they didn't want to eat a bunch of our nasty
to
rotten
put
food?
something in there?
You think raccoons are composting?
I think that it's possible an additional human is composting.
Oh, well, I guess that's plausible.
I mean, I used to be much more active about dealing with my compost.
Mhm.
I have learned from talking to some of my other like crunchy, Portlandy friends that they're all much more precious than I am about what can be composted.
Well, we don't eat any meat, so like most of our food refuse can go in there. And what do we compost that is questionable?
Well, no, I think we're right. But, you know, one of my friends recently wrote me a series of text messages with photographs that were like, what should I do about this? And it was like a rotten jack-o'-lantern in a trash can.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well,
Oh, that was covered in like mold and shit?
it was like a
Yeah,
moldy
okay, I remember that one,
jack-o'-lantern.
yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, that would have gone in the compost way before it got into a garbage bag in a garbage can in my life. And she, I guess, expressed doubt that it could be composted. Like she was afraid that
an already decaying pumpkin?
Yeah, her husband is sort of like a gardening fan and plant oriented, but she was somehow under the impression that if you put something moldy in the compost, that would be bad for the compost.
Oh.
Which I don't know where that idea could possibly come from, because
'Cause it
literally the
definitely
point of
molds in
compost
there, yeah.
is that it's just teeming with microorganisms.
Yeah.
I mean, you got some bacteria also, but
Well,
the
I
main
hope
thing
you
is
can-
that microorganisms are breaking down your food and your.
Well, I hope you can put moldy stuff in there because I put our nearly full loaf of moldy bread in there.
Listen, everybody, PSA, you can compost food that is already moldy. You got a moldy jack-o'-lantern?
Perfect.
Throw it in there.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've heard you concerned about a moldy jack-o'-lantern, but I do know.
It's pretty niche.
But I do know people who would have anxiety about the idea of composting, say, citrus rinds. Or,
oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people think you can't compost citrus rinds. They just break down more slowly. But I think it's led to this kind of urban legend that maybe like it's bad for the compost or something. I don't know what you do if you have
dirt.
if you have like 5 gallons of citrus rinds.
Yeah,
or
obviously
something all
your
at
compost
once,
can't be
but-
like predominantly one weird thing. Like it has to be a balance of stuff.
But I've definitely seen people who like want to pick out their like avocado peels or their citrus rinds
that's
or
very
things like
curious.
that because I guess they don't break down
As
at the same
rapidly,
rate as other
yeah, of
things. And
course.
so aesthetically, if what you're trying to get is like an extremely fine compost where you can't tell what anything ever was, I don't
Mhm.
know, maybe they're concerned about that. I definitely also have heard of people not wanting you to put any item that's been cooked into the compost. I guess for fear that like any fats or oils would be a problem. The kind of tiny amount of oil
Like-
contamination that you might get from like
a little olive oil in a thing. Yeah.
or as you just composted some moldy bread, you know, I just would never think twice about that.
Yeah.
But I do know there are people who are like very particular about what goes in it, and they
Maybe
feel
we'll get
this
some
like,
maybe we'll get some hate mail.
yeah, bring it on. Because I do think people have these strong opinions that like something bad will happen if they put the wrong thing in the compost. But the only things that can happen that are bad are raccoons get in there,
Well, we're already hitting that point. So
or it composts more slowly than you want it to. I mean, you want it to compost quickly and not like produce a lot of anaerobic products, I guess. I don't know. I just feel like if it's not in a landfill and it's actually decomposing, you're really doing fine.
Yeah.
If you can make it so that as much of your garbage as possible has an opportunity to decompose at whatever
desired
whatever
rate
rate
is,
you
yeah.
can get it to, whatever, that's fine. Like if your compost takes a year to compost because you don't tend it, it's not like you have to suddenly put all that half-finished compost in a garbage bag and throw it away. Like it's still compost.
Yeah. Well, that's what's in the garden for this week. The only report we have is on our pile of garbage in the garden. All right, we got to get to this catalog.
Okay, what do you want to say about it?
All right, this is fucking Seed Savers Exchange. It's a 2021 catalog. It rules. This catalog fucks. It rips.
Is this your favorite catalog of all?
No,
our
you know what my
catalogs?
favorite catalog is. It's Fedco.
Well, you're really hyping this one up.
Well, it here's the thing. On the outlines that I usually make but have neglected to make for this episode, there's the first bullet point. Well, the first bullet point is history/mission/ideology.
And its ideology is it fucking rips.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then the second bullet point is cover and design. I mean, from a design standpoint, this is unequaled.
Yeah, I mean the cover is a beautiful bouquet of flowers that also has some sprigs of peas mixed into the bouquet, which I think is an interesting and nice choice.
Yeah, I mean, their fonts look great. Their word mark looks great. It's iconic, really.
Yeah, their logo is very cool.
But even the internal design, I think.
They don't have a bunch of random shit written on the
Right, yeah.
cover. They know they don't need to try to entice you by saying 50 new ways to hoe your onions or whatever.
Yeah. This is all like glossy color. The page weight is great. The catalog feels good. It's organized, and this has not been true every year, but it's organized in the 2021 catalog alphabetically, but with many of the sections are preceded by an interview, a short interview with an expert on whatever vegetable that it is preceding. So there's the bean section has Steve Sando, the owner of Rancho Gordo,
Wow.
giving an interview. Yeah, they got all the
Luminary.
Yeah, they got all the luminaries, the famous people, to talk about stuff. So he has an interview where he talks about beans.
Wow, so they've got real magazine content in here, but they are confident enough that they don't even need to try to advertise that it's in here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Steve Sando of Rancho Gordo precedes the bean section. Ira Wallace, who is a worker owner, because Southern Exposure Seed Exchange is worker owned, is a worker owner at Southern Exposure, talking about collards. They have Jessica Green Deer, who's a seed keeper and farm manager at Dream of Wild Health, and a partner in Rematriation Project. They have an interview with her talking about corn. They have Amy Goldman, who's probably, I don't know, the most famous gardener, talking about melons. They have Kristen Shockey, who is the author of Fiery Firmaments, talking about peppers. And Craig Lahoulière, who's a author and the Seed Savers, main tomato advisor, talking about tomatoes. So it's fun to me that they have people from rival catalogs who are experts in their fields even interviewed here. Like every other catalog that's cool is influenced by and owes a debt to Seed Savers Exchange.
Well, Ira Wallace's top tip
On collards?
Yeah, is that I am a big believer that organic matter will solve almost all gardening ills. And I think the corollary of that is that pretty obviously our sandy soil, which cannot retain organic matter, it's not a deficit we'll be able to overcome.
It's true. Yeah, but everything is just so beautifully laid out in this catalog.
Yeah, it's great.
And also the descriptions are, of course, legendarily good. Do you want to read some of the descriptions that are in the collection section? So this is rare seed varieties offered for the first time in 2021 in this catalog.
Oma's pink tomato. This dark pink beefsteak tomato boasts a great, moderately sweet flavor. Born singly or in pairs, fruits mature mid-season. Have a medium acidity and very thin skin. Weigh from a half to full pound. and measure 3 to 5 inches wide. Tall, leafy, indeterminate plants grow 5 to 6 feet tall. Betty Moore of Stowe, Ohio, has stewarded this variety since 1983, when she received it from her mother, Oma Rachel Lively Miller, who bought it at a greenhouse in Fredericktown, Ohio in 1943.
There's also Oma's Orange, which I won't read because it's pretty similar, but it notes that Oma Rachel Lively Miller was given the variety when she married as a wedding present.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, maybe that's a good reason to get married. Maybe someone will give us
tomatoes.
Well, maybe someone will give us our own variety of something. I'll read the Fagiolini del Occhio cow pea. This highly productive and beautiful yard-long bean bears pale violet flowers and pods uniformly distributed throughout the plants. Tall vines require a strong trellis, with each stalk producing 1 to 2 solid green pods encasing 16 to 20 brown-red kidney-shaped seeds. Tender, juicy pods mature mid-season, reach 2 feet long, and have excellent flavor. This cowpea is especially delicious when eaten as a tender green bean. Grown by Vasco Marconi since at least the late 1950s in Chicago, this variety has been stewarded by family member Patty Trotsky of Naperville, Illinois since the late 1990s. Patty donated the seeds to Seed Savers Exchange in 2013. Man, imagine having the surname Trotsky. And these fucking beans are 2 feet long.
Yeah, I mean, that's a thing.
Jesus. You could
that's a type. Yeah, that's a type of bean.
So you could Lady and the Tramp this bean with your lover.
Definitely.
Meeting in the middle.
And that's probably the main way that people eat them, actually. I will say that this catalog size and paper type is not my favorite. You can't actually hold it with one hand without it sort of flopping around and stuff.
Well, it's pretty substantial.
I don't like a glossy as much as I like a matte.
Okay.
Not to
it is a little
on a...
No, that's fair. It is a little over, it's a little wider than 8.5 by 11, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an unorthodox size, but...
Well, at any rate, there's going to be a lot of rustling on the recording.
Well, people like that.
Do they say that? They love that?
Yeah, everybody loves it.
Okay. Well.
This is mostly we did originally think maybe this is just an ASMR podcast.
That's true.
But then we started bullshitting constantly instead.
All right. Well, this one goes out to all my juggalos and juggalettes.
Whoop, whoop. Don't try this at home.
Shishito pepper. Compact bushy plants produce an abundance of 3.5 to 4 inch wrinkled fruits over an extended period. When eaten in the green stage, as is traditional in Japan, peppers are incredibly crunchy with just a hint of heat. When red, the fruits are sweet and slightly hotter, but not as crunchy. Perfect for frying, this Japanese heirloom's fruits are usually mild, but an occasional pepper, about 1 in 10, is hot. Kitazawa Seed Company...
Friends of the pod.
Do they follow us? In what way are they friends of the pod? Just that we like their catalog?
Yeah, we like their catalog.
Okay, so the pod is friends of them.
Friends of them, yeah.
All right. Played an instrumental role in introducing shishito to the United States seed trade. Seed Savers Exchange acquired the variety in the 1980s from the Urban Farmer Seed Company of Convent Station, New Jersey. So the idea that you're playing Russian roulette with these
one
peppers,
out of every 10 of them is hot. That would generally be seen as a
flaw,
negative.
yeah.
Right, yeah.
9 out of 10 peppers, very sweet. 1 out of 10, hot.
Yeah, that's insane. This would be considered desirable in any way.
I mean, I do kind of love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have no idea what to expect when you prepare these.
Yeah. I'll read Summertime Lettuce. True to its name, this beautiful and delicious crisp head variety tolerates heat and resists bolting. Plants measure 7 to 8.3 inches long, very specific, and 14.5 to 17 inches wide, and produce a solid round head. Large, silvery green leaves are highly toothed, and measure from 7.8 to 10.2 inches long and 8.2 to 12.2 inches. There's no fucking way they know with this exactness. How could they know with this exactness?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to measure a lot. I don't know why you wouldn't just sort of round it.
Yeah, and it's also like, you ever like look for used clothes online and they'll tell you the pit to pit measurement and the shoulder measurement?
Yep.
Yeah, like I try to not buy new clothes anymore if I can help it, but try to like look on eBay to buy used clothes at this point because of our world. But, you know, like if it's a fucking cotton shirt, you could just stretch it a little more. Like it depends how tautly you pull it, what the measurement is. It has give and take like fabric does. So I feel like this is the same, where it depends how you lay it down and how you flatten it to measure it, how wide it actually would be.
I just don't know about these decimal points. I agree with you on your first point.
Yeah. It goes on. Its very sweet, incredibly crisp, and extremely juicy leaves earned this variety high marks when it was evaluated at Seed Savers Exchange in 2015. Bred by Dr. James Baguette at Oregon State University in the late 1980s for areas where lettuce can be grown throughout the summer, this variety was donated to Seed Savers Exchange in the 1990s by member Mary Schultz of Monroe, Washington. Can lettuce be sweet?
Sure, why not?
The thing that lettuce can taste like is solid water, I think.
Well, that's not true, and you know
Iceberg
it.
lettuce.
Well, sure.
Yeah. Hey, before we go, we got really nice email from Zeb, and in it they disclose that they are in fact enthusiasts of curly parsley. Now, recently on the podcast, we learned that flat parsley is considered as the desirable modern incarnation of parsley. And we talked about how curly parsley was common as garnishes in our youth, but I guess during the recession that fell out of favor. We did, I will say, however, have some curly parsley.
We made it into chimichurri recently. It was fine, but it was noticeably tough. Like you could tell that really this wasn't like an eating parsley.
It
was very fibrous.
It was all that was in the store. Zeb said that they used to chew it up at the end of the meal when it was served as garnish and as like a breath freshener, and that has, instilled some sort of long-term fond feelings about it. They go on to say, I have a theory that the more delicious, in quotes, flat parsley is more cilantro-ish, based on my sense of taste and zero botanical understanding. I'm sensitive to cilantro and have the it tastes like soap gene. And to me, flat leaf parsley is more soapy and cilantro-like than the moss-tuft looking triple curly parsley, which only ever tasted as fresh and green as it smelled to me. So yeah, curly parsley does have its adherents.
Yep.
They also mentioned having a mango allergy in this email, and that reminded you of a mango allergy story that I thought was very fun.
No, the story was that two college friends of mine, I went to their wedding, which was in India, and one of them was Indian and one of them was not. And the one who was not was deathly allergic to mangoes, which was a huge issue to the point where he basically, the whole time he was in India, he had to like stay in his in-laws' family's home and not go anywhere because he could not touch money. He couldn't handle like anything that was out in public. There was
mango residue.
Strong odds there would be some sort of mango. It's just on everything because that's just how
mango
is
eaten heavily almost everywhere in the world except here, right?
It's the most consumed fruit in the world.
Right, yeah.
And so he had to wear like nitrile gloves everywhere he went and stuff to prevent
all in the name of love.
Getting mango on him. And there was some part of the wedding ceremony that was meant to involve literally handling mangoes.
this caused tension with his in-laws.
And her family really wanted him to do it. And I think they ultimately substituted the mangoes for some other fruit.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, they really wanted to play with fire there. Like everyone who was visiting to attend the wedding was instructed not to eat mango treats while out and about before returning to the house. Like they wanted you, if you've consumed mango, like they want you to shower and brush your teeth before you're here. Yeah.
Wow. Damn.
I mean, I guess that's love. I personally am not sure I would be willing to risk a severe anaphylactic reaction at any moment for weeks on end, just living in a world where that's possible.
What if I developed an allergy to it would cause you to divorce me?
Well, nothing.
Well, I was allergic to Lucy.
Yeah, it's true. And that's why I had her killed.
All right. Well, if you're so inclined, you can elect to follow us on Twitter at @cdbusiness or on Instagram at cdbusinesspod or email us at cdbusinesspod@gmail.com. Let us know if you'd like us to talk about a particular catalog or leave us a review and we'll read it. And even if you are deathly allergic to them, you should eat your vegetables.
We're all just doing the best we can.
Speak for yourself.
It's city business. It's city business. Boring talk about seeds, city talk between boys. Mind-numbing chatter about ovules and spores. We'll dig a ditch and moan and split the difference. City business.